they have a swan feast or feast of the swan. And so now what they do is they take this stuffed swan out of its case, and the chef will still bring it in on the platter at the start of the meal.
Welcome back to A Curious Appetite. One of the things I find myself returning to again and again on this podcast is the question of attention. Why do some stories disappear while others endure? And why do certain places remain visible while others fade from view? And what does it mean to really look closely? Today's guest is photographer Niki Gorick, whose work has spent decades doing precisely that, looking closely. Influenced by photographers such as Cartier-Bresson and Lord Snowdon, Niki has built a remarkable career documenting moments that might otherwise pass unnoticed. Like the best photojournalism, her work captures that fleeting instant when people, places and histories suddenly crystallise into something larger. As Niki herself puts it, everyday life is like theatre. You've got people who are doing things, and you've just got to catch that moment when all the elements come together and crystallise what is going on. Our conversation takes us through some extraordinary worlds. We discuss photography in Hong Kong, the changing technologies of image making, and whether it is really possible to produce professional, publishable photographs using nothing more than an iPhone. We talk about cropping, composition, mirrorless cameras, and the challenges of seeing clearly in an age when everyone carries a camera in their pocket. But we also descend into what feels at times like a secret city hidden within London itself. Through Niki's lens, we encounter the bubble service and the ancient rituals of the Mansion House Easter banquet, the curious tradition of the loving cup, the role of the swan warden, and the hidden communities that live along London's waterways. For listeners familiar with my own work on the Thames and cultural memory, there will be much to enjoy here. Niki's photographs reveal how dramatically the docklands changed after containerisation transformed maritime trade and redevelopment reshaped entire neighbourhoods. Yet her work is not really about buildings, it's about people and the ways they inhabit changing landscape. It's about what survives when industries disappear and cities reinvent themselves. And perhaps that is where today's conversation touches most closely upon food and memory. At one point, we find ourselves reflecting on the way people speak about their mothers and fathers cooking. There's often a quiet sadness in those stories, an acknowledgement that certain tastes cannot be recovered exactly as they once were. The recipe may survive, the ingredients may remain the same, yet something else has vanished. Memory lingers but never quite allows us to return. So join me as I sit down with photographer Niki Gorick to discuss observation, memory, London's hidden worlds, and the stories waiting to be discovered in the spaces most people pass by without a second glance. Welcome to A Curious Appetite, the podcast where we explore food and beyond, the stories, memories, rituals and cultures that shape who we are. I first came across Niki Gorick through my friend Sheila Kavanagh. When I told Sheila that I was researching London's docklands for a book that I'm currently writing with Dr. Dan O'Brien, The River Remembers, a Gothic voyage through forgotten histories of the Thames, she immediately said, "You need to meet Niki." Niki has an exhibition at the Cutty Sark in Greenwich, so it quickly became obvious why Sheila had been so enthusiastic. Now, for decades, Niki has documented the hidden communities, ceremonies, traditions, and working lives that exist alongside the Thames. And her photographs reveal a London that many of us pass through every day without truly seeing, capturing the people, places, and rituals that continue to shape the city's relationship with its river. Today, we'll be talking about photography, hidden London, ceremony and ritual, communal meals, food traditions, Swan Upping, memory, and the challenge of documenting a city that is constantly changing. And we'll also be discussing Niki Gorick, Dock Life, her fascinating exhibition currently on display at the Cutty Sark in Greenwich. Niki, welcome to A Curious Appetite.
Hello, and thank you for having me. Gosh, we're really going to talk about all that.
Well, we're going to try, and we've had conversations about all those things before, so I know that we can get carried away sometimes, but that's the best part of talking to you, Niki, because you've had so many incredible life experiences. And for listeners who don't know you as well as I do, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first found your way into photography?
Growing up, I always loved films and books and storytelling. But I suppose I first got absolutely fixated, on still photography during my gap year. my parents were living in Montreal at that time. So I was able to do a very short, brilliant 3-month course at the Montreal School of Modern Photography. And it taught me everything from portraits to darkroom techniques to, still lifes, all that sort of thing. I always remember my mum taking me age 17, and it was run by quite an eccentric gentleman. And he said to Mum, he said, "Mrs. Gorick, you do realise that your daughter is going to become hooked." And he was absolutely right. So I went on, I did my English degree, but I spent a lot of time in the theatres there photographing. So I kind of knew that I would be going the visual route. But then I went into journalism, and then I came into television, into moving pictures. Somebody offered me the chance to do that. So I did that for a few years. Then I went into script writing. But then I came full circle back to my first love, which was taking pictures. Me and my cameras, when I had children, it fitted in better. So I then started photographing London. I was back in London by then. I'd been in different countries, Hong Kong and Scotland and Canada. And so I started taking black and white pictures of London, because there was a gap in the market back then for good black and white pictures of London. There were good ones of Paris and New York. But London had been through huge changes. This is in 2000, the year 2000. And I wanted to show that, but I wanted to show it as a living city. And that's what I always like to do, show the people and the stories behind that. So that's what I've been doing since then. I've been doing books as well. So yes.
It sounds very busy and very interesting, all different forms of storytelling. And you kind of eventually settled on photography and, but that might evolve again back into other forms. So I love that we're seeing more and more with people the fluidity behind all the activities that one does. I feel like in the past, there's been a way of viewing people's jobs or things that they focus on as quite static. It's like, oh, they are a painter and that's it. There's nothing else. Now you hear the person behind the activity, and they might be a doctor and a painter, or they might be a photographer and a scriptwriter, and so many different things. Before, I think that was a little bit frowned upon. And I heard something about people saying that that's down to the fact that we're living a lot longer lives. And so people want to choose and do different things, within one lifetime.
Yes, no, you're right. I mean, in the old days, you did kind of one job. It was a job for life, basically. And then you retired, and that was it. And then you died.
Yes, I know. Photography especially, I love because it's a snapshot of something and that will never be the same again, even after a few days. So it lives on forever. Now, was there a particular photograph or photographer or a moment that made you kind of realise this was something you really wanted to pursue seriously?
Well, you mentioned sort of capturing that moment, and I suppose, Cartier-Bresson would be the obvious inspiration for that. I was very intrigued by how he captured everyday life. So I wanted to be Cartier-Bresson. But also I remember Snowdon, funnily enough, because he did a lot of theatre work, and that's how I kind of got into it. Like I say, at university, I started taking pictures of theatre plays, the students, and then this is at Warwick. They have a big art centre there still, and a lot of travelling companies came through. So I photographed for Payne's Plough and that kind of thing. And I loved that. I loved that theatrical aspect. So I thought, well, maybe I could do that. But then I got sidelined. I went off and did photojournalism in Hong Kong. But again, it was looking at real life through a theatrical prism, really. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but to me, everyday life is like theatre. You've got people are doing things, and you've just got to catch that moment that when all the elements come together and sort of crystallise what's going on, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So it's nearly as if you're really attracted to documenting these hidden worlds in a way. And is there like a feeling that you have when you know you've taken a really good picture? I don't really know how it works, but is there something?
It's so funny. Yeah, you think, got it. And obviously in the old days with film, you kind of still knew that you'd got it, but you had to wait, obviously, until you process it.
Yes, of course.
Now you can check, and it is a great feeling, but it doesn't happen all the time or even very often. I mean, it depends what you're doing. In my kind of normal work, which is photographing London, I can go out for a day and take very few photographs and think, gosh, I haven't actually got something that's going to work. But it doesn't matter. It's all grist to the mill. You're looking at the and you think, well, I'll come back to that spot because it's not right now, but something might be happening. So, but no, there's a definite feeling where in your guts where you think, I've got it.
Got it. And I always ask, and I'm lucky enough that I can ask you for advice sometimes. And I think I asked you recently, is it acceptable to take pictures with my iPhone, Niki? Because I need some pictures and, they need to be kind of taken quite quickly and it's for something I'm publishing. Is the quality going to be good enough? And so, yes, I suppose a lot of listeners will be thinking this. And so I'm going to ask on behalf of them as well.
Well, yes. I mean, you just have to make sure, if possible, that you've set your settings to the biggest file size that you can, so that when you use it, depending on what size you need, that you've got the definition. There's normally several settings of JPEGs, and some of them you can shoot what's called RAW, which is even better because then you can put it on your computer and fiddle about with it if you wish in Photoshop. So, but no, I mean, lots of photographers now do use iPhone, Samsung. I still use traditional ones. It's sort of habit, really, because in the old days when I provided, I don't really do it now, but I used to provide very large prints, big wall size prints for hotels and things like that. You needed a big file size.
Right.
So, but I suppose it's habit. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, but also it does give you more flexibility if you've got bigger lens, more powerful lenses. I mean, my file sizes are huge, but it means that the other good thing is that if you, I tend to photograph in the camera. I don't do much photoshopping. I really don't, and I don't fiddle about. What you see is what was there.
Oh, interesting.
But I occasionally crop. So, for example, if normally I try and get as close to my subject as possible. But if I can't, big file sizes mean that you can crop right in and take just a small bit, and the definition on that will still be good.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yes.
Yeah, whereas possibly on a phone, it would be a bit blurry.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
File size isn't as big. So, yeah.
No, those are really good tips. Can I ask what brand of camera you use? Is that allowed?
Well, for years I used Nikon, both film and then digital. But then when I went to what's called mirrorless, which are lighter, thank God, at the time, and they're still brilliant, I'm now using Sony or Sony. I never know.
Sony, okay.
Sony. So I've got two of those, and their lenses are brilliant. So I'm very happy. So sorry, Nikon.
We've moved on from you, Nikon.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of find out what you're working on at the moment, because I know you've been out and about taking lots of pictures behind the scenes of quite important ceremonies as well. Can you tell us a bit about this project?
Yes, it's another book project with hopefully an exhibition if I can try and sort that out. It's called Ceremonial City in the 21st Century. And it's looking at the City of London, the square mile. It's looking at all the ceremonies and the traditions that still go on, both with the Lord Mayor and the Mayor. This is different from the Mayor of London. This is the Lord Mayor. In fact, this year there's a Lady Mayor, and the mayoralty. It's looking at all the ceremonies and traditions to do with the Mayor's office, and the sheriffs, which is they're based at the Old Bailey.
Right.
And also the livery companies. Now,
so can you tell us the difference between the Lord Mayor and them for people who don't know?
Well, Sadiq Khan is the current mayor of all of London, so all the boroughs, of which there are 32. But the City of London has its own borough. I mean, that's one borough, but it's the oldest. I mean, it goes back 900 years. So the Lord Mayor, the office of the Lord Mayor, and that's the head of it, that office goes back 900 years. Sadiq Khan's the Mayor of London is much younger, I don't know, whatever that is, 50 years. So the Corporation of London is essentially the council of that borough, which is the City of London. So Lord Mayor is the head of the borough. I mean, that's the basic thing. So they do have council meetings, but the difference is the Lord Mayor or Lady Mayor comes in a full robe with a tri-cornered hat, feathered, with her sheriffs behind her. And in front of her, she's got the mace bearer and the sword bearer, and they process in. And the aldermen, that's what the councillors are called, aldermen, and they represent the wards within the City of London. They have their council meeting, and they discuss things like, the state of the roads or housing, but they happen to be dressed like this, and they bow. So these are all traditions that have been going on for, as I say, 800, 900 years, and they maintain them. But so I wanted to show that. And the livery companies there's 114 of those, and they come from the old guilds. So there's a trade guild. So if you were back in the day, again, 900 years ago, a shoemaker, let's say, or a blacksmith, you had to do a 7-year apprenticeship with one of with the specific livery company. So the Worshipful Company of Blacksmiths, or the Worshipful Company of Masons, or and that would bring you up to a certain standard. So which meant that you could then do your work within the square mile, which at that time was the main bit of London. So it meant that they were maintaining standards. It was also a bit of a closed shop, but I mean,
yes.
But mainly they were maintaining standards. So these things have carried on, and a lot of them have beautiful halls in the City of London, old halls. A lot of them don't, because they were either lost in the Fire of London or more likely during the Blitz. But they're fascinating because they're all different. And I'm trying to show that and they all have these extraordinary ceremonies, and they maintain these, but it's not all pouncing about in robes. The purpose behind that is to, give dignity to the post of master and wardens, which changes each year. And these are all unpaid. These are people kind of giving back to the community.
So it's all voluntary, right?
All voluntary, and that includes the Lord Mayor and the Lady Mayor and the Sheriff. Right, all unpaid.
I mean, very prestigious. Do they get to keep anything afterwards as a memento? I wonder.
Well, I mean, no, they don't keep the robes.
Or a badge or something. Well, I don't know. It seems like a waste.
Well, each one of them has to have a beautiful enamelled and often a gold badge, as they call it, which they hang around their neck. And often that's, if they've got a coat of arms, they'll put that on. If they haven't, they'll put one together to show what they've done during their life. And I photographed that. It's a fascinating procedure where they think about what they've done in their life and put different elements in, and they make up a sort of coat of arms.
That's so fascinating.
And I think they have to find money to do that, because they're not cheap to put together. I think they get sponsors and people, or they pay for it themselves if they happen to be wealthy. But that's what they'll keep.
How do they get voted into this position? Is it like because I assume it's quite difficult to get into the role?
Yes, it takes a while. And, well, you have to first of all become a freeman of the City of London. Which you have to get sponsored to do. That's relatively easy to do, really. I mean, you just find a couple. But then you join a livery company, or more than one, and then you put your work in. You give up your time, and you also donate money. There's lots of huge charitable work, which is also what I'm trying to show, that now these livery companies will have links with their trade, if it's still going, like bakers, the Worshipful Company of Bakers, or masons, carpentry. But because they've been going so long and people have donated over hundreds of years money when they die, they've got a lot of trusts, they own property, but they run schools. People have probably heard of the merchant tailor schools around the country, or the haberdashers. So a huge amount of support for education. But there's still a lot of people who give money, but they also give their time. They mentor, because they're very skilled people. I mean, these are people who want to give something back. So yes, you join your livery company, and then you apply to be an alderman, which is part of the boroughs, part of the wards within the square mile. And then in order to become Lord Mayor, you have to become a sheriff. And there's 2 sheriffs, and they're voted in by the livery companies. And this is all very much, there are 2 sessions each year where this happens. One votes in the sheriffs, and one session votes in the Lord or Lady Mayor. And you become, this is where it gets complicated. There are 2 sheriffs. One is called the aldermanic sheriff, and he or she, 2 years later, will probably become Lord Mayor. Oh. And then there's a non-aldermanic who is kind of there to help, but they also have to be an alderman and be within the system. So so the sheriffs, they have to then live in the Old Bailey. There are 2 very small apartments. They have to live there for their year, unpaid, and they wear on a daily basis black breeches. And it all comes from, what would it be, the 18th century, that garb. Very smart, but, with sort of stockings and buckled shoes.
And wigs, maybe?
Wigs? Not wigs,
not wigs,
actually,
no.
funnily enough. the judges obviously wear wigs,
yes.
and the Lord Mayor wears a tricorn hat.
Do they get to go with their families to these
Yes,
apartments? They can. Okay.
Yes, I mean, but they're very small. I mean,
Yes.
it's like the Ritz. It really isn't. And every day the sheriffs give a lunch for the judges, and there's no alcohol, and the judges have 1 hour off. They come out of their court cases. But what the sheriffs have to do is each day they bring in people, all sorts of different people, to meet the judges from everyday life, different people, so that the judges...
They'll just randomly pick them?
Well, they pick people who they think the judges should meet because they're interesting and can inform them about different parts of society. So the judges are kept in contact with basically what's going on. So that's
fascinating.
a really nice touch. And anyway, so those are the sheriffs. And then, like I say, they change every year. And then 2 years later, there's the one that was the aldermanic sheriff is normally, unless there's a complete upheaval, which doesn't happen really, they're voted in because they proved themselves, because they support the Lord Mayor. So you will if the Lord Mayor is going somewhere, they are going with him or her.
Right. Okay. So they're sort of mediating, and they are they're sort of all pillars of support, really, for the whole system. It's just fascinating.
It's fascinating. I'm trying to show that. And like I say, but also this other side, which they're very quiet about. Because last year, collectively, the livery companies gave to charity over £81 million.
That's amazing.
It's huge. And that's just the money side, because they also give their time.
And that isn't through any church. I mean, religion doesn't enter into this?
No, although they do support the churches within the square mile, and they use them a lot, which is good. They have church services. In fact, I was photographing at St. Bride's yesterday, the General Church on Fleet Street, because the stationers, the worshipful company of stationers and newspaper makers, that is their church. So they use it for their services.
Right.
And so yesterday they had a lovely service called the Bubble Service. This is very interesting, which was started by a gentleman, I can't remember his name, in 1715.
All right.
He gave money in perpetuity so that each year there would be a service to celebrate life. And it's called the Bubble Service because each year somebody has to give a sermon or a talk as part of those about life as a bubble, and they actually sing "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles" at one point. There's a lovely choir there. So,
I can't believe it.
So, and as it's a journalist church, all the journalists are there. And then afterwards, there's a lunch. And the lunch is also to honour their connection with the Royal Marines. They give out 3 awards each year to Marines who've done particularly well. And again, they support them. So there's sort of links. So I
mean, I suppose if one went digging and you'd probably find these things out, but they seem so specific and so detailed, but not really visible at all. It's not something that I've ever seen on TV. I don't know if I've been looking in the wrong places, but it's not something that's been apparent to me. And I think they're just wonderful details of London and the city of London.
Well, there is one event that people might have heard of, which is the Lord Mayor's Show, which is televised. But that's the only time it comes to light. It's in November. It's when the new Lord Mayor comes in, and it's the day after they're elected. It's in November, so it often rains, but this year it didn't. It was brilliant. And it's fantastic. It's free, and the streets are lined with people watching, and it's a huge parade of huge floats. And it shows all of life. You have schools, you have all the livery companies marching, you have the military bands, you have Guildhall School of Music because they're supported by that. And they all file past Mansion House, and it's a wonderful day. So people might have heard of that.
Yes. And of course, we've spoken about this before, and I've been just flabbergasted by some of the things you told me. But lots of these traditions actually involve communal meals, of course, and some sort of feasting and hospitality and shared food. Now, have you found that food often acts as a way into understanding a community from your perspective?
Well, yes, I photographed a lot of dinners. I mean, there are dinners, but that's part of the fellowship side of these livery companies and the Lord, in Mansion House, there's the Easter banquet when all the diplomats, interestingly, all diplomats come and they have dinner at Mansion House, which is where the Lord Mayor lives for the year. It's near the Bank of England, and that's an interesting occasion because I don't think diplomats get together very often. And you have the world's ambassadors to Britain all coming for this white tie dinner in this magnificent hall. So there's that. But the livery companies also have meals, which they pay for themselves. But it's a way of getting to meet people within their particular trade or their community. So I went to the nurses, Worshipful Company of Nurses, one recently. I'll just mention quickly, they all do something called the loving cup at the end of the meal. Or towards the end of the meal, which is, again, an ancient tradition. This is to do with the fellowship. And it's filled with wine. It's a big gold cup. And it's passed round. And three people stand up. The person with the cup, and then the person behind, to their right, they will turn to their, probably left. And the person to their right will then face away and guard their back. Whilst they take a sip and then they give it to the next bow and then they give it to the next person. And the reason why they're doing that is because way back, again, 900 years ago, somebody got stabbed whilst they were having a drink of the cup. So the tradition now is
wow.
And then it goes down the line, and then the person who's standing with the back turns back, and they do wipe the cup each time. So you take your sip and you bow, and then you hand it to the next person, and then it goes right the way around the table.
So it's about trust, really, and preserving that trust.
Exactly. And what I loved was when I went to the nurses, they do it slightly differently because during COVID, they suddenly realised that this probably wasn't the most hygienic thing to be doing. Well, this is after COVID, sorry. So they now pass the lamp like Florence Nightingale.
Yes.
So they have this lovely, it's not like a Chinese lamp, really. It's one of those concertina.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. It's not very big. And again, they just bow and they pass it round. And it was a lovely sight just to see them passing this round.
You've documented all these really extraordinary traditions, but is there one that sort of shocked you or surprised you?
Well, the Swan Feast was definitely one that was amazing to see.
Are swans being eaten?
Well, not anymore. But
okay.
What happens is at the I'll explain the Swan Feast quickly first. But they used to eat the swans, and of course there'd be a roasted swan, which would be brought in great ceremony on a platter by the chef. But they obviously don't do that now. But they do have a beautiful stuffed taxidermied swan at the Now, there's two livery companies that do this. The Worshipful Company of Vintners, which of course are the wine people, and they still have a lot of contact with the wine trade, and they support wine, the masters of wine and all that sort of thing. But anyway, and the other one are the dyers. That's D-Y-E-R-S. They were cloth dyers. And they still have links with the textile trade. Mm. But they are both involved with Swan Upping, which I can come on to. But as part of that, in the winter, they have a swan feast or feast of the swan. And so now what they do is they take this stuffed swan out of its case, and the chef will still bring it in on a platter at the start of the meal. And it's lovely because there's the master of the vintners. It's confusing. Some of them are called prime wardens first. Anyway, the prime warden, and then you've got three wardens below him or her that gradually move up and become the prime warden. Anyway, one of them at the vintners is called the Swan Warden, and he comes in with a whole lot of musicians playing medieval pipes, and he comes in and he does it. And he's dressed in his robes, and he has a small cap on, so he does a sweeping bow, and he presents, and the chef is with him with the stuffed swan, right up to the master's table and a prime warden's table, and presents the swan and says, "Master, I can't remember the exact wording, but the specific wording he has to say, which is basically to say, give your guests a wonderful feast." Mm. And then they turn around and they go back out. And it's wonderful because you've got the musicians, you've got the warden bowing and sweeping his hat about, and you've got the swan on the platter, and you've also got the watermen with their oars. Now, this is the Waterman and Lighterman Company, which is another livery company to do with the Thames, and they have magnificent red outfits, and they're involved with the Swan Upping, and they carry oars. So I mean, it's amazing.
I think I have seen those. I do remember seeing definitely some uniforms that were bright red and obviously black and gold. And I'm wondering if it's that. But so the Swan Upping sounds interesting.
That is extraordinary. And that's...
And you've taken pictures of that, obviously. Okay.
I did it last summer, and it happens for a week every July on the Thames. And it's when the King's Swan Marker, the swan markers from the Vintners Company and the Dyers Company, so the two livery companies. So there's three swan markers, and they go out with their crews on Thames skiffs, traditional rowboats, and they're all the swan masters wear different colours. So the King's Swan Marker wears a scarlet blazer. And his crew wear scarlet as well. And then you've got the Vintners wear black and white, I think. Anyway, it's very smart with big badges as well. You know, when I say badges, made of metal on their jackets, very smart. And then you've got the Dyers who wear navy blue. So it's very colourful. It's they each have two skiffs each, and the purpose is that they row up from, I think it's Sunbury to Abingdon, so huge stretch of the Thames. They were over 5 days. They worked really hard because I was there for two days, and they row up. And when it was first started 900 years ago, it was by royal charter. It was to give ownership of the swans to the king or queen and these two livery companies on the Thames. Now it's really to check and count the swans on the Thames each year, and educate people in swan welfare. So they, along the way, they'll talk to school children. It's really fun, showing them, you know, how to get bits of old fishing net out of the river.
Yes,
and things like that. But it still goes on. And what they do is they corral any new broods they see. Amazing. They handle them beautifully, and they get them out, hopefully onto the bank somewhere, even if it's somebody's garden, and they weigh them and they check them, and they measure their beaks, and then they will either, it's a complicated procedure, but if they look at the parents, and if there's no ring on either of them, then the signets are deemed to be they belong to the crown. So they don't get ring.
Oh, okay.
But if one or other of them, the cob, or I can't remember what the actual mother and father are called actually, but anyway, if one or other of them has a ring already on them, which signifies that they belong to the Vintners or the Dyers, then the signets are also ringed.
I see.
It's just sort of a tradition, and what's good is that this is for the swans' welfare now. It's a check, make sure they're okay, and then the King's Swan Marker puts a report together, and it goes to the palace. So there's this year-on-year record of all the swans, or most of them, on the Thames.
Has anything changed with King Charles? Because I know he's a great environmentalist and he really cares for animals, and he's very much into his farming and agricultural better practices. So I just wondered if you'd noticed a change with him.
Well, I only went last year, which of course he was king by then, and I was lucky enough to go on the press boat, which is organised by Buckingham Palace. So I met very nice chap who organises it all, and then actually somebody else from the Buckingham Palace. So I had a chat with them, but I think it's such a tradition, and it's a good tradition, and it's a caring tradition now, that I think he would have absolutely no problem, and I'm sure he would support it. Well, the Queen certainly did.
She did, yes. Wow, this is absolutely fascinating. I'm sure I have more questions, but for now, I wanted to know a bit more about the Cutty Sark, because I've been doing my own research as well. So talking to you has been just so valuable, because obviously you have a long-standing relationship with the area. Can you tell us a bit more about the docklands and how you came to exhibit your photographs at the Cartier-Bresson, and sort of why you were excited to bring these stories to the audience.
Well, it came from the book, which I wrote, put together, called Dock Life Renewed, How London's Docks Are Thriving Again. Because I was looking for another project after I did a project in the City of London called Faith in the City of London. So I actually spoke to people and they said, oh, well, you've got the 40th anniversary of the London Docklands Development Corporation coming up. And that was a couple of years ago now, but when it was happening. So about 4 years ago, we as a family had moved to the old Surrey commercial docks in London, now called Surrey Quays, Canada Water. Maybe people will know that. A lovely scoop in the river, south of the river. And it used to be obviously part of the great port of London, which for 2 centuries was the biggest port in the world. And in fact, in Surrey Docks, that was the biggest wood port. I mean, amazing. But that all closed down in the 70s, basically. Complete. And it was all derelict. 6,000 acres. And this included where Canary Wharf is now, the Royal Docks. And 6,000 acres of just derelict land left because all the shipping had gone downriver because of containerization, basically. The big ships couldn't really come up here now. So down to Tilbury, places like that. And then in the 80s, he wasn't Lord then, was he? Michael Heseltine, he was Minister for the Environment or whatever. He started the London Docklands Development Corporation because he saw an opportunity. The Big Bang had just happened in the City of London and people needed more space, the financial people, for larger offices. So that's when he looked at particularly the Isle of Dogs and thought that's fantastic. And so he was given the task of regenerating all these areas but at that point the boroughs, which there's Southwark here and north of the river, obviously there was others, they hadn't known what to do with all this land and there's big stretches of open water. So he was able to kind of bring it all together. And to be honest, they did a really good job, certainly here. I mean, they really they built low-rise schools and houses, and they planted huge amounts of trees. So anyway, when we moved here, I thought it was the most beautiful place to live now, 40 years on. And so I was thinking, there's this anniversary coming up. So there have been books about how Canary Wharf has changed, all the buildings, blah, blah. But I was looking at the change in the use of the water. Because round the corner from us, literally, I look out onto Greenland Dock and South Dock, and there's a huge community of houseboats. They don't like calling them that. They're called liveaboards. That's what they call them. But people living on boats. And also there's a water sports centre here, and there's a working boatyard where people... So I thought, this is fascinating. During COVID, when we were walking around, I started talking to people, one particular person particularly, who was very, very informative and introduced me to others. And I was fascinated because they're gated communities in that if you live on a boat, you have to have a special key to get onto the pontoons and down. It makes sense. And the boatyard, So I gradually got to know people there. And I thought, this is wonderful. This is again, a sort of hidden part of London, right in the middle. I mean, you can live on a boat right in the middle of London, relatively cheaply. And, certainly cheaper than if you had to buy a flat. And so I started photographing, and then I thought, well, I'll broaden it a bit and do the Isle of Dogs and also St. Catherine's Dock up near Tower Bridge. People might know that the best. All those three very different, run by different people. So that's how it grew. And then when I did the book, or I was doing the book, I thought, well, it'd be nice to have an exhibition. So I thought, the Maritime Museum and the Cartier-Bresson, I thought, well, I'll try them. And they were very keen. It took longer than perhaps I'd hoped, but for various reasons, not to do with me. But no, so I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased that it's been on since last November, and it's on for a whole year. So it's continuing on till this November. So.
And you can visit the Cartier-Bresson, and then you'll find the exhibition sort of in the basement where you get all those wonderful wooden sculptures that were put at the helm of the ship, the figureheads, and so many of them. I mean, it's amazing to look at. I took so many pictures when I was there.
They are extraordinary. And it's well worth visiting the ship too. I mean, because the exhibition space is in the dry dock, which is what they call it. There's a cafe there as well. Unfortunately, you do have to pay to go and see the exhibition as well, because it's in the ship, basically, which is like drawback. But the ship itself is wonderful to see.
It's well worth it. And they've put also some sort of things that you can hear people's voices as well, and people telling their story as you're looking at Niki's pictures. I mean, it's beautiful and so interesting now to hear what you were saying about that kind of hiding nearly in plain sight, people right in the middle living or in the Isle of Dogs, or, even Greenland Dock, which used to be called Howland Wet Dock, I believe. And it was where they'd bring in the whales to slaughter.
Exactly.
And all of that area is kind of, people have there's been an elision from memory about how vital whales were to the docks and lighting up the city, literally.
Yeah.
And everything started to then change.
Yes, they used to boil the blubber on the quaysides here, and the stench must have been.
That's what I've read many accounts of the stench being unbearable, and it's just so hard to think. And that wasn't, that long ago, really.
No.
But yeah, seems so far away now. I don't know how much input did you have in how things were laid out, or did you think about your photographs differently as you were kind of curating this exhibition and thinking about the order of things? Did it make you see, or had you done this before? I'm just thinking about the process of it really more than the pictures themselves.
Well, the curators, Louise and Hannah, were brilliant. They brought me in for discusussions, and what I loved was it did make me look at them in a very different way, because they obviously looked at the book and they couldn't put all of it, and there's over 170 pictures in the book, so they had to choose.
Yes.
I thought they were really clever. They sort of picked three sections: it's work, play, and general life.
Yes. And
they picked 15 photographs, and they did it really well. We talked about it, because what they also had to do was look at their own archives. So the Maritime Museum has a huge archive of wonderful pictures of how it was when it was a working dock. Sorry, the Port of London were working docks, plural, because it was huge. And so they had to look at the pictures they'd got that they wanted to show with my photographs, so that you get the best idea of the huge changes. And I think it really good. I mean, and it made me see, because it emphasized the huge change from people working on huge ships that used to come in and stretch right across the Thames and then go into the docks, to now where you've got people windsurfing. And
I know, it's incredible.
So I said that they did a really good job, but they kept me. We had lots of discussions, and I really like what they've done. I'm pleased. Yeah.
It's a brilliant exhibition. And Niki, I love your pictures, because yes, it's beautiful to see the different angles that we're seeing everything through your eyes, but you do focus on people, and that gives the photographs a special energy, I feel. I really, really do love them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So because this is a Curious Appetite, I wanted to ask you if you have a favourite dish. If I were to place a favourite dish right in front of you now, what would that be?
It would be venison. I love venison. I love roast venison, but not too well done. I like it. I just love it.
Really? Would you? What would accompany the venison?
Dauphin potatoes, broccoli, a nice glass of wine.
Yes.
I just love the sort of richness of it, and it helps that I know it's very lean meat. It's ain't very good for you, but I just find it very tasty. I don't think where it comes from, but it's But I like game generally. I like, which is probably not the best thing to say, but I just love guinea fowl and that.
Yes.
Thing. I certainly wouldn't eat swan, because funny enough, because the reason why they don't eat it now is it doesn't taste very nice.
I was going to ask, I wonder if anyone knows how, or they could describe what it tastes like, or what colour meat is it? No, is it like a white meat?
No, I think it's quite dark.
Oh, is it? Interesting.
Sure. But it's very tough. It needs a lot of
really,
and it doesn't taste very nice. I mean,
No.
yeah, which is weird, isn't it? But they're big. They're big birds. So
they're very big, and their necks, when you look at them closely, they're quite wiry. And because I live on the canal, so often, we've just kind of grown up around swans with my very young daughter, and she kind of learned to communicate with them, and she would snort at them, and I thought, how weird, why they're not pigs, but if you listen to them, they do snort. So she was right, they actually have this snorting sound come out as they kind of go towards you. Yeah, we know quite a few around here now, and they nest around here as well. And it's always such a moment of panic when the seagulls come for the little baby swans. But there's nothing you can do. I know it's nature, but it's always difficult to watch them kind of try, and because there's from that height, and actually seagulls are very powerful.
Oh, they are.
They come down and they kind of swoop down on the little ones, and there's not much the swans can do, even though they're very strong birds.
I know seagulls eat. They try and eat pigeons, because I don't know whether you saw David Attenborough's Wild London.
I did. I saw the fox episode, actually.
But it also showed a seagull extraordinary in Hyde Park or somewhere, grabbing a pigeon and trying to drown it.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
it's wild out here. Absolutely wild. Is there a taste or a dish or a family meal from your childhood that instantly transports you back to another time and place, Niki?
I haven't had it for a while, but Mum was a really good cook, and she spent a lot of time in Singapore, and so she used to cook Nasi Goreng. Whether you know, it means fried rice, basically just fried rice, but with lots of bits in it. And I remember she did it brilliantly when I was growing up with you could chuck anything in, but she used to put bits of chicken in and peas and onion but it was just a lovely light and lots of chutney. I remember having it.
Really? Oh, that's nice. Do you try to replicate it, or is it can never be the same as our mother's cooking?
Never be the same. It's funny, isn't it? But yes, I suppose that I mean, she used to cook nice curries as well. They were Malay curries, very so coconut based.
Oh, I love those. Where can people find you online, Niki, and look at your work, see your work?
Well, I have a website, and it's nikigorick.com. And the spelling of that is Niki, that's Niki, and then Gorick, which is GORICK.com. And it's only one R. Everybody tries to put two in Gorick, but it's one. And yeah, that's where. And the books are in. There's a tab called Projects. So I haven't put the Ceremonial City one yet up there yet, because it's not quite finished. I'm waiting to get, but that will be going up soon. But the other two are Faith in the City and the Dock Life one. And there's
wonderful
link through to the exhibition too.
Yes, so and head over to the Cartier-Bresson in Greenwich if you can, in London, and visit Niki Gorick Dock Life. I really recommend it. Niki, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been A Curious Appetite, podcast about food, memory, and the strange ways in which what we eat begins to shape who we are. If you enjoyed this episode, you can follow, rate, and share it wherever you listen. It makes more of a difference than you think. You can also find more reflections on essays and behind-the-scenes material on my Substack and my website, alessandrapino.com, and YouTube channel A Curious Appetite Podcast with Dr. Alessandra Pino. Oh, and if you have any suggestions or ideas or something you'd like me to explore, do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. The email address is acuriousappetite@gmail.com.